decriminalization and exploring the social implications of it. We'll delve into some interesting subtopics, including the debate on marijuana versus anxiety medication and the physical impacts of marijuana use. We'll also examine how the war on drugs has disproportionately impacted marginalized communities and perpetuated systematic racism, before moving on to discuss the benefits of regularization and taxation. By the end of this, to begin with, the medical benefits of marijuana cannot be ignored. Numerous studies have shown that marijuana has medical properties that can be used to treat a range of medical conditions. The National Library of Medicine conducted a survey in 2014 to determine the therapeutic benefits of cannabis for various medical conditions. The survey collected data from 2,795 medical cannabis patients, and the results demonstrated that cannabis provided significant relief for a variety of symptoms, including chronic pain, nausea, and muscle spasms. 3.8% of patients reported using cannabis to alleviate PTSD symptoms, but only 46.4% of those patients reported that cannabis was effective in reducing their symptoms. This finding is consistent with other research on cannabis and PTSD, which has produced mixed results. While some studies have shown that cannabis can be effective in reducing PTSD symptoms, other studies have shown no significant improvement or even worsening of symptoms. One possible explanation for this variability is that different strains of cannabis contains varying amounts of cannabinoids such as THC and CBD, which can have different effects on the body and mind. Additionally, individuals' differences in genetics, brain chemistry, and life experiences may influence how cannabis affects a person's symptoms. While the National Library of Medicine survey provides evidence of therapeutic benefits of cannabis for many medical conditions, including chronic pain and nausea, it is important to acknowledge that cannabis may not work for everyone, particularly for those with PTSD. On the other hand, medical marijuana has been shown to be a potentially safer and less addictive alternative for treating anxiety. Therefore, policymakers should consider the potential risks and benefits of anxiety medications and medical marijuana when making decisions about drug policy. While benzodiazepines can be effective in reducing anxiety symptoms in the short term, they can have serious negative consequences, including addiction and overdose. Medical marijuana, on the other hand, may be a potentially safer and less addictive alternative for treating anxiety. Policymakers should consider the growing research of indicating the potential benefits of medical marijuana for treating anxiety, as well as the potential risks of other medications when making this decision about drug policy. There is growing research suggesting that marijuana does not have a significant negative impact on the brain and is not addictive, which policymakers should consider before criminalizing marijuana. One such study was conducted by the National Academy of Sciences in 2017, which revealed the current state of scientific knowledge regarding the health effects of cannabis. The study found that while acute cannabis use can impair cognitive function, particularly in areas such as attention, learning, and memory, these effects are typically short-term and do not appear to persist after of use. Additionally, the study found no conclusive evidence to support the claim that cannabis use leads to structural or functional brain abnormalities. Furthermore, the study found that cannabis use is not as addictive as other substances such as opioids or tobacco. While some individuals may develop a dependence on cannabis, the risk of addiction is relatively low, with only about 9% of regular cannabis users becoming dependent. These findings are consistent with other research studies, including a 2018 study published in the journal JAMA Psychiatry, which found that cannabis use was not associated with changes in the brain structure or cognitive function in adolescents. Before criminalizing marijuana, policymakers should consider the growing body of research indicating that marijuana does not have significant negative effects on the brain and is not highly addictive. Criminalizing marijuana not only fails to address any potential negative consequences of marijuana use, but it also has significant social and economic costs, including increased rates of incarceration and a diversion of resources away from more serious crimes.
This brings me to my next point on the war on drugs, which is used to describe the United States government campaign to criminalize drug use and trafficking. This began in the 1970s. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, the war on drugs has led to an increase in mass incarceration, with people of color being disproportionately represented in prison population, with black people being 4 times more likely than white people to be arrested for drug offenses, despite similar rates of drug use. The impact of the war on drugs on marginalized communities extends beyond just incarceration rates. It has also led the criminalization of poverty and drug addiction, with low-income communities and people with substance use disorders being at higher risk of arrest and imprisonment. This also has a devastating impact on families and communities, with the separation of families being because of incarceration, which has led to increased poverty, trauma, and social instability. Overall, the war on drugs has had a significant impact on marginalized communities, perpetuating cycles of poverty and incarceration. Instead of criminalizing marijuana, policymakers should consider alternative approaches such as decriminalization, regulation, and taxation, which can help reduce the harms associated with cannabis while also generating revenue for public health and education initiatives. One study was published in the International Journal of Drug Policy in 2018, which examined the potential impact of regulating taxing marijuana in Canada. The study found that a well-regulated and taxed marijuana market could generate significant revenue for public health and education initiatives while also reducing the harms with marijuana use. Specifically, the study estimated that a taxed and regulated marijuana market in Canada can generate up to $5 billion in annual revenue, which could be used to fund healthcare, education, and other social programs. One potential educational reform that could occur due to the legalization of marijuana is the allocation of tax revenue generated from the sale of marijuana towards funding education initiatives. By regulating and taxing the marijuana market, governments can generate significant revenue that can be used to improve the quality of education in their communities. For example, in the states where marijuana has been legalized for recreational use, such as Colorado and Oregon, a portion of the tax revenue generated from the sale of marijuana has been allocated towards education initiatives. In Colorado, for instance, marijuana tax revenue has been used to fund school construction and improvement projects, as well as providing funding for drug prevention and treatment programs in schools.
Hopefully, I provided some insightful information that